So in this section, we're going to talk about true patriots versus false patriots. Meaning the true patriot really means, as the people as of today don't even know what that word patriot or traitor really means. The definition of patriot and traitor have been completely reversed in today's psychology in the world. Modern so-called flag-waving patriots who uphold a belief in government are actually traitors to humanity, whether they know it or not, because they advocate for the very belief system that leads to the destruction of human freedom, and that is traitorous, and they back the government, they back the ideologies thereof. So they are the ones who confuse the government itself with the people, which are the two separate things that should never be confused. True dissidents are the real patriots because they love their country and countrymen enough to stand up to their tyrannical institutions at play who are at work within it. And don't mistake of me confusing country, meaning the land and the people who are living upon the land, with the particular quote-unquote government that happens to be in control of that said people, my countrymen. Because I love my country, I just don't like the politics of the government that I see in addition, trying to serve up that kind of truth when that truth is nothing but a lie. So I personally serve my country, and I serve for the country that I live in, which is also the people of the world, in addition to serving truth in and of itself. I serve truth above all else. I'll serve the Lord, I'll serve my country, which means I love the people, I love the land, and I will advocate for their freedoms and try to teach them the principles of their own freedom. This does not mean that I love government. I actually hate all forms of government because all forms of government are slavery at its finest. The definitions of patriot and traitor have been completely reversed. The true patriot will do everything in his power to protect his people from its very own government. That is what a true patriot is. The duty of a patriot is to protect his people from the said government being overthrown and over-tyrannical, overrun by greed and deception, whatever they want to do, run over people's lives like whatever they see fit, wherever they see fit. Modern military are not to be confused with revolutionary patriots and the militia of the people. They are the modern-day equivalent of the king's henchmen. The supporters of the police and military are the modern-day Tories. They are the backed and crowned of the British during the American Revolutionary War era period, if you wanted to look at it that way. The military are not fighting for freedom, they are fighting for the empire of their masters and the commands and orders of their masters. The military and police are not protectors of a free and open society, they are enforcers of an enslavement by the ruling class. The ruling class that sits above them, getting them to do the very things that they go to work on. And some of these people are on the very, very verge of awakening, but this kind of awakening needs to happen at a much greater speed than it's happening today, and needs to happen quickly as we progress into the new coming age that we're going into in civilization, because it's overt slavery in early America as we know it. If they're really fighting for our freedom would look like them going up to the police that are doing their jobs right, and these areas of government that are not doing their jobs right. Overt slavery in early America, many of the black slave owners of early America and Civil War era period in America were dissidents because they opposed the condition of overt slavery. Slaves of the Civil War period lived under continuous duress They were viewed as someone else's property, viewed and forced to work under the threat of violence or death, and deprived of any of the fruits of their labor. This is a very dark topic of discussion here, because it is overt slavery. It's not covert slavery, it's up-in-your-face slavery. But an overt slavery, much like one that I know quite well of my own, these are some of the most abhorrent practices that have ever been conducted upon other human beings. And yet they still go on today, regardless if people are aware about it or not. The practice of slavery and the practice of these ways and the occultist ways still go on to today. Black slaves in early America were kidnapped from their native lands and brought to America by ships and crowded in unsanitary conditions. Those that survived the journey across the Atlantic Ocean were sold at slave auctions, and then they were forced into labor camps, and they were called plantations, to enforce indentured servitude, working crop fields in torturous conditions for the duration of their whole lives. Many who offered resistance were whipped or beaten mercilessly, hung, burned, or even fed to the dogs. Laws were passed which barred slaves from escaping from that of a slave state where slavery was legal to one who had it banned. Runaway slaves were often hunted and returned back into bondage. Laws were often passed to criminalize helping or harboring any of the runaway slaves. So they should have opposed their duress. If you ask me, every single last one of them should have been opposing the duress that they lived under. Facing imprisonment or death, or worse. No, we're not going to toil and sit here and labor for you fucks. Fuck you. Fuck you. Some Civil War era slaves, such as Frederick Douglass and Harriet Tubman, acted as dissidents and offered resistance against the practice of slavery by escaping and fleeing to states where slavery was not practiced, and then helping other slaves escape as well, which means such as these certainly showed disdain for their former masters and their abhorrent actions. Many would argue that these means undoubtedly still constituted what could be called passive resistance, since they did not directly take action against those who were conducting such hideous and immoral practices. I'm not saying that they were wrong for doing this and went to tremendous lengths to do what they did. In my opinion, I'm just speaking for myself. It doesn't go far enough. It's simply going to a place of escape where this practice is simply not going to be done to you. People still to this day excavate and they'll try to run away to somewhere instead of just facing the reality of the human condition that we actually have today. They hide from it, don't want any part to do with it. People who choose to relocate instead of facing their own issues in life. People run from the reality that they're faced with, often are faced with the same reality or even worse wherever they run to. And I can understand as people that just want peace, but when a person is these days and age being hacked, as I've been talking about, and there's nothing that can be done about these things, I got to beg to differ when it goes as far as where it's going to murder you and to go into your life in that kind of way to push you continuously. You're owed a lot of money. You're owed more than money than they have. But there has to be more done than just people running away from these issues. I can tell you that I'm not going to run anywhere. I'm not going to go anywhere. I'm going to stand right here and fight this evil. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to fight this evil from right where I am at. And that's what a true patriot is someone that has the cojones to fight this evil head on. And if I'm going to get struck down dead for doing it, then so be it. I'm going to be killed alone while fighting for freedom, fighting for my own freedom my whole life, because I just want to simply become a whole integer in this life today, and hopefully be able to go to 80% or 100% even. But without people's said help, There's no way. That kind of duress that I've been placed under, that people don't even believe is there. I mean, it's just sad, but it's just like urban blight all over the place in your life. You can't get away from it when it's set up against you, and especially when it's criminals and it's crime and it's paid for. So I don't care about any of these people because I know exactly who these people are, and I know exactly who their perpetrators are, and I know exactly the ways that they can set up other people to come into my life to attack me. And they do. The fact is that they do. I'm tired of it. I'm talking about those who physically rebelled against being slaves of their masters, people that had the courage to step up, when today I don't think people have the same nerve to step up. Yeah, you're going to go up against the whole government with the kind of work thing that you're doing. Yeah, sure. Go up against the whole government instead of standing alone, doing that, fighting yourself. Because it's wrong that these people do what they do, and they continue to get away with it. They continue to eat up human rights and freedom so long as the people continue to go quietly into the night and not say anything, not do anything about it. But I, for one, am not going to go quietly into the night about these issues. These things have been planted up and staged up for my entire life. So the media conglomerates painted in the Virginia massacre as something that was just a hideous event that took place. But God forbid there were human beings that were being sold as indentured servitude or into indentured servitude and being treated as the people's property, where they were killing people and doing all the kind of horrible things that put them into the kind of condition in the first place. So how dare they call themselves masters, right? Because that's what the media made it out to be. They're like, how dare, calling them out for the right thing. Then they go around killing people like that. Imagine this just as the media is doing their job, following orders. Just it's a sad example of immoral humanity right there. And one that consciously deserves brave enough people to step up and tell them something and tell them anything different. Tell them fuck off. You and I know it as well as these other people do, that these are paid shills, paid liars, paid deceivers of all mankind. They sell you on a lie, an outright lie, to make you hear and get you to tell that truth as if that's something to tell, and that's just the real crime. And it just goes on, it goes away, it goes on until it goes away, and then they come up with another one, and another one, and they're still at work hardest today, same way they were in those days. So we're facing the same things, but if you ask me, in worse ways today. We're facing the same things today, but in way worse ways. Overt slavery in early America, the horrid massacre in Virginia, Gabriel Processors Rebellion, Richmond, Virginia, August 30th, 1800. The Haitian Revolution, August 1791 through January 1804. The German Coast Uprising in Louisiana, January 8th through the 10th, in 1811. I mean, there's more examples of overt slavery in early America. Nat Turner's Rebellion, you could look that up. John Brown's raid on Harper's Ferry, Virginia, October 16th through 1859. These physical assaults just keep on happening. Some slaves during this time period rebelled physically back, and there are many slave revolts, most of which were violently suppressed. Such revolts were subsequently downplayed or entirely covered up in modern historical accounts. Every slave ever held under these deplorable and immoral conditions possessed every right to, under their natural laws, rebel up against the tyrannical enslavement that they're under, to fight and even kill for their enslavers and to be free. People are not property. It's as simple as that. People do not have the right to treat people as property, and no matter what people do to constitute for that right. There is no right to constitute that under the laws that are ordained to us by natural law, the laws of nature, the ones that are provided to you naturally. With that being said, many of them died while trying to kill them. They tried to rise up and kill them, and they ended up dead at once. Not once I am claiming to promise that a physical fight against oppressors might not end so well, or that a person who has the right to defend themselves against a tyrannical oppressor might not live to see the next days. But I'm just trying to explain to people that the right exists and they have the behavior and the moral obligation, I would say, to do such. It's the morally right thing to do, is to protect yourself against those said oppressors. It's the right behavior to take upon the action of protecting your own freedom and standing your ground from those said oppressors. And this is why those men who were killed for trying to do that very thing did that. There are many revolts in history to mention here. Say the Gabriel I always get that word wrong. The Gabriel Prosser's Rebellion of Richmond, Virginia, the 1800s. As I mentioned all before that list, because these people did not play games, as they would often kill every last man, woman, and child in order to get their freedom back from an oppressive government. When they ever got any kind of order back for their lives, they would revolt completely, viciously, relentlessly. And they had every right to do what they did. And then they were branded as somehow barbarian and violent and non-human beings. But no, this is wrong. They were acting in a way that behaved within every right, that behaved to the ways that they were oppressed, in the ways that they were, the ways that they were left in duress, the ways that they were hungry, the ways that they were left, the ways that they kept seeing their own getting killed, the ways that they kept seeing people trying to rise, trying to get liberated, and not getting anywhere. Death after death. No, you have every right to rise up from the tyranny that is. No one was coming for them with any reason to help them or to liberate them or to listen to their reasons. And no one was listening to their reason that they're being held on to in duress in that kind of way today. No one's being listened to in those kind of ways today, just as I'm not being listened to in these kind of moral practices that these people think that they have the right to do. They don't have the right to do the things that they do, not around me and not for me, not thinking that any of these outfits have been protecting me or protecting my right in any single fashion. So anyways, these people took up arms to do what they had to do, and they were abhorrently commented on for doing the work that they had to do, just for protecting their freedoms at all costs necessary, when you don't have any other recourse of action left to take. And if you ask me, the way that state is running people and people's rights are being violated across the board, we could come to a place like that soon, where people are going into that kind of Haitian revolution, and to make that kind of Haitian revolution look like a little tea party. Because the kind of technology that exists today in America, I highly believe that people are getting really fucking fed up and tired. Really fucking fed up and tired. So I'm trying to wholly overt the idea of it being that way, but without more treacherous people and teachers stepping up to do this kind of work. I think we're heading right down towards that path right now. I think it's scary that we're heading down that path right now, because I'll just say the kind of things that have come up into my own life that trigger that kind of moral compass that's required today to have that kind of grit, to do this kind of real work through the kind of things that you're having happen in your own life. Yeah, it's a bit hard to do, and it's grimy. And I'm not just talking about a little grimy, I'm talking about very grimy. Because it's not an easy task to do to become a dissident and a widely oppressed people. But I'm not here to say that if it doesn't become done somewhere to end the kind of state of duress that some of us are living in, then we're going to end up dying, never having ever gotten to know what a state of freedom ever felt like, what a whole life felt like, what just being a whole integer felt like, dealing with the regular norms of people, everyday life that they face. Why? Because we're not living in a free America anymore. It's just not. When somebody's hacked and misaligned all the time, that kind of way, you're pushed to the grind, you're said to be this and that, you're just being painted up by a whole bunch of narcissism, a whole bunch of ways that complete people's lives, push it over here, push it over there. You're not allowed to any kind of freedom, for if you were, you'd be working on wholehearted things that could actually do things to change things in America. So I'm not going to take to the kind of abuse that they're trying to come out here and say about how any one of us are. No, these people are immorally trying to murder us and have like the legal authority and jurisdiction over our lives, making our lives their property. I shouldn't have even had to have been the one to come out here and do this kind of work, because I should have had millions of other people before me doing this kind of work before me to make sure that these kinds of crimes don't happen over people like me or over anybody in these kinds of ways. But that's just not the cards for me at this point. I've seen way too much, I've lived through way too much, and I've learned way too much along the ways about how these people truly operate and what you're actually up against. Because people, regular people, they aren't in these places that you're in. You're there left to see these things. You're there left to dispel every single last one of these attacks. And trust me, these attacks aren't just simple. These attacks are bold. These impacts have been cowering in their packs for too long. The attackers have for too long, and now it's time for people to stop thinking that it's a foolish thing to come out here and do this kind of work, because no one understands the kind of truths that are actually happening to people anymore. No one understands what their rights are to do. No one understands the kind of duress that people are being left in and across America, where koala bears have more said availability to the news than you do. And somehow it devolves into what it does these days, and people are being left in droves throughout the world, and there's no truth to the news then. They're just a force that's just too outreach, too much of an outcry for their resource to even help the people out of the state of duress and the fear that's compelling them into trying to escape somehow from that said violent state of duress, all the way down to the banks, following the money, the fiat currency, everything. It's all anybody else is getting to be a help to society to anybody else, and it's not enough. It's never going to be enough, and that's just it. And then so they commercialize everything, like I've said before. But there should be millions of people out here doing this kind of work today to try and solve the problem of duress in this country and around the world. There have to be many more teachers helping people learn this stuff so that people know what the fuck is going on, so that they recognize, regardless of what they're being told or not being told by said governments or by the educational system, to know what it has to in front of them, to be able to say, I don't care what they're saying anymore. I'm going to be willing to fight for what is right, for what is truth, because the morality is just going out the fucking window, and we're dealing with the whole living tyrannical bullshit show for very far too long. And it's fucked up that people aren't able to fucking see it. And even if they do, it's too fucking bad that people can't do anything about it because it's too far down that rabbit hole of duress. They've been lopped off. They don't know who they ever would have been if they ever would have been free from the time that they were born. So they just don't care anymore. They've thrown in the towel. They've given up. They've never known of things. They've never not known how they could go about getting a thing, and they've given up on the thing altogether. And you should all know it. You should all know the feeling of that. Because that's exactly what happens. And that's not okay. That's not okay at all. Disenfranchising the youth to the point where it's just so hardcore for anybody anywhere to get out from under. And these kinds of things aren't just happening to me. It's happening all across America. And people are getting brainwashed to believe that their government has any morality whatsoever into the horrible thing that it does to people. When the fact is that they aren't doing anything good for people. They're depriving people of their natural laws, their natural rights as human beings, even the laws that they write up. They aren't utilizing to protect you in. You know, so the ones that they are derived from our Creator, they can't tolerate those ones. But then the ones that they signed and infringed documents and all this other fucking kind of camaraderie to protect you from said murderers and all these other criminal values, they're not protecting a damn soul from any fucking one of them. If they were protecting me from any said one of them, I would have been able to come out about this stuff a long time ago and be able to discover what I feel like I have been discovering all the fucking along. People don't want to think that way. People don't want to even think that their rights are being dismayed that same way. But that is what the availability is, because they're able to steal up on everybody's worth, leave us cursed right from birth to being able to have any freedom at all. So the government is encroaching on our rights in this land, depriving us of having any freedom ever. Just a few short ways that they are encroaching on our rights is overreach of law enforcement powers, erosion of due process to our rights, censorship of control of information, the mass surveillance, and that they surveil all of our stuff, and the infringement of our digital rights ends up into the hands of hackers in the first place, and then the suppression of political dissent, which is like where I'm at, or where other people's are at, and their voices are silenced because they're challenging the status quo rather than the overall vibrancy and the inclusiveness of the political landscape is how they see things fit. So the impact on the infringement of their digital rights can have an innovation of reduced freedom of expression, reduced freedom of being able to reach the public to get help, and then they compromise the security and privacy of individuals set in the digital space because we're hacked. Our lives are under attack. There's nothing that we can really do about it to get our lives back, it seems. So we're left in a state of duress constantly.